Everything must change.
Straight Out University, Big John is the host with the plan. Time to wake the sleeping giant that lives in every man. Forget the ordinary path, that blueprint's outdated. We building legends here, totally self-created. You need the 4 pillars for total fulfillment. Money, muscle, frame in the game, that's the mission. Master your finances, forge your body, your mindset. Level up your influence, make them all respect. Yet, stop settling for a life that's just a faded dream. Time to build your empire, make your own world shine supreme. This is the goal, let's get to work. Yeah, Straight Out University.
What's good, everybody? Man, here we already are, starting with technical difficulties, really. All right, come on, let's get this layout going, see how we can work this. Sorry, everybody, my computer froze a little bit. Where are we at? All right, I guess we're back on. All right, always running into the technical difficulty. I'm still waiting for my man Albert to help me get a IT guy over here or something so we can figure some of these things out. Just wanted to welcome everybody. Class is back in session. Welcome to Straight Out University. We're talking about the Sunday news. We got a couple of topics on hand. I have a couple of people that are going to be coming in. I have one guest, and I will introduce him now, and he can introduce himself to you. Let's grab him on. There he is, my man. Please let the audience know who you are.
How's it going? I'm Jesse from the Unpack Mindset. Yeah, we're here to discuss tipping. Let's see, what do I talk about? What do we say? I've been doing podcasting for what, 2 months now, and I met John. I thought his content was great. It's amazing, and it feels good that we can do this collab and talk about a lot of the stuff that we agree on and disagree on. So I say we dive into this, brother.
Yeah. Hell yeah, we're gonna dive into this, man. All right, check this out. I was oddly struck by some things that I started watching as a post. And this is a tipping. I'm on what they call this. Look, I love to eat, man. And then out here up in the north, man, we got restaurants everywhere and different kinds of restaurants. We got this, we got that, we got American food, every kind of food out here. And then everybody, of course, has their specialties with their trucks, their taco trucks and so forth, and all those kinds of good stuff. I mean, so everywhere you literally work out Monday through Friday, so this way you don't gain so much weight on Saturday and Sunday because you're always out eating somewhere or drinking or doing something, man. So it's really out here. It's a tough way to be out here because there's so many places with great food. So, but one of the things, I'm part of this group called the Foodies, okay, and this is out here up in Santa Rosa, out here in the Sonoma County, okay. And I'm part of this group, and part of this group, they always put like, well, what's the best place to eat? What's this? But one of the posts, and I started noticing a lot of these posts, was how to tip, and I was like, okay, because I've always thought, okay, I'm gonna tip 20% of the bill. That's usually what I thought. But some people were posting, waiters and waitresses were posting things that said, if you can't afford to tip, then you shouldn't be out there eating. You shouldn't go out and eat. And I was like, well, wait a minute, what? And I'm just kind of like, well, that, I'll be honest with you. I just kind of looked at it like, what kind of shit is that to say? And it's like, well, they were showing how somebody tipped them $12 on $100 bill. And I'm like, okay. And they're like, well, this is ridiculous. You shouldn't go out to eat if you can't afford to tip. And I'm just like, well, where are you eating at? Like, I'm looking at the receipt. It's like Applebee's or Chili's or, a place like that. Not necessarily a fancy restaurant, but not a budget restaurant either. I'm not saying that Denny's is a budget restaurant, but we all know Denny's is a budget restaurant. All right. So I was looking at that and I was like, man, I'm a little confused. What is your process of tipping? How does that look for you when you take the family out?
Normally, man, I've worked in the food service, as a young kid. I've worked at In-N-Out. I've worked at Bob's Big Boy, in high school. So I understand, the plight, right? I understand the struggle of keeping the customer happy and getting the food out on time. And so I would say, man, when I go out, I always have a little bit of money aside for a tip. there's a lot of nuances, right? You know, I'm sure we've all experienced bad customer service, but you know, when I speak about the nuances, I'm talking about maybe they're short staffed, right? Or maybe the only one cook showed up, and you know, you can't really you can't really just put it on the waitress, right? You can't really put it on her. So there's been situations, you know, where I got terrible service, right? But I've gone to this restaurant numerous times, and 9 times out of 10, it's amazing. And I've always tipped good. And I just took it upon myself to tip the waitress, give the waitress a good tip. She almost started crying because she knew, like I knew that they were short staffed. I could see it. And I knew she was struggling. She only brought me one drink in like the last hour.
Oh,
you get what I'm saying? But I seen that she was suffering. I seen that she was struggling. I seen that she was trying to get to all her tables. You know, so like I said, but then I've had the opposite where it was like just rude. And that person just didn't have any people skills, you know? So if I'm going to make a conscious decision on whether I'm going to give a good tip or a bad tip, it's going to really be based on the setting, right? On the circumstances that surround the service that I'm getting.
Right. Okay. I mean, I can kind of see that, but on average, what do you tip? 20%, 15%, 25%? What do you tip?
So my baseline would probably be 15% and then on up.
Okay. Because for me, tell me if this doesn't work out in your mind. Does this math out? For me, I look at where I'm going to eat. I'm not saying that I'm going to tip the waitress at Denny's less of a percentage that I am a more a higher place, like maybe a Chili's, or maybe I go to Cattleman's, or maybe I go to, you know, maybe a higher steakhouse, or maybe I go to a more high-end restaurant. But it also depends on where I'm at too, right? Like, look, if I'm going to Denny's in the hood, chances are my bill's not going to be that high anyway. So I can go from 10, 20, or 10 to 15 to maybe 20% on a tip based on the fact that my food isn't, you know, is $16, right? For the meal, right. A couple bucks. And so my total out the door is going to be under $50. But if I'm going to a high-end steakhouse where I'm looking at a bill of, you know, $175, now I'm looking at, well, the service is important. Because the meal, I'm paying for the meal. So the tip is based on the service, and I give more weight to that for the simple reason is, you know, I'm paying for the ambiance and that's what that tip is for, because I'm already paying for the steak.
Oh, I agree. If you're going to go to a nice steakhouse or you're going to go get some lobster, and you know, you're going to have certain expectations. I agree with that. You know, I agree. We're going to have expectations.
100%. But here's the thing, and tell me, and look, I don't consider myself to be a rich person, but if the meal's $175 and I'm paying 25%, madres, right? Like that's tough. That's a little bit, right? Because I'm spending money now, but I want that service. I don't want to look when I put my drink at the end of the table because I want a refill. I expect a refill. I expect something for that tip that I'm going to give. That's probably somewhere in the neighborhood of, you know, north of $30, $40 for a tip. So right. I'm looking for something. Is that right? Is that wrong? How should I look at it?
You know, it's right, but you know, like I said, I'm gonna throw another screwball in here, right? I'm always throwing screwballs. So you know, it's like when you compare food service, right? When they're bringing you you want good service. We all want good service. I'm not ruling that out, right? But you know, when the economy's hard and people's wages fluctuate, right? You know, you got people that are like, so let's just say you got police officers, nurses, you have people in the medical field. Their paychecks stay steady, you know. And when you're working in food service, like your waitress, uh, you know, that tip, those tips that you accrue at the end of the week could be game changers. You know, they could be game changers, and that pay fluctuates, man. You know, their pay fluctuates immensely, and so you know, really what it comes down to is being ready to make the tip if you're going to go somewhere nice, and having those expectations. And but I'm not going to rule out, bro. Like, I'm not going to rule out bad service. If you're going to get bad service, you're going to get bad service, man. And you know, we know, right? We know, we understand, we have that understanding. But like I said, I always try to keep that social dynamic when I go somewhere to eat. I don't forget about what a difference my tip and how tips accumulate, how much of a difference I can make by giving that tip to that individual, you know?
No, 100%. And how far do we dip in? Because it was common practice before the COVID. And I understand COVID, and we'll reach the COVID era, because the COVID era changed what tipping habits were. For example, the average was about 10 to 15%, 12% before COVID. And then COVID hit, and that made everybody want to give a little extra, because they're trying to help the businesses stay in business, because everybody was, you know, shut down over that COVID. But now we're in some twilight zone kind of, you know, weird place where it is expected by a not a full service restaurant to get 25% of a tip for giving you your burrito. And I'm just like, nah.
Yeah, you know what COVID did was, when everything when everything opened back up, we had this weird guilt and social pressure dynamic, man.
Mhm.
And you know, all of a sudden, like, you start seeing these digital tip screens, right? You know, you swipe your credit card, and this is where it got corny, bro. Like, where it got annoying.
Right?
It got really annoying. And then not only do you have digital tip screens, and they're not asking for 15%, they're asking for 25, 30%.
Right.
So I feel like customer service slipped a little bit right there, you know, because people weren't talking, people weren't there wasn't a human connection. Okay, there wasn't a human connection, right? And tipping expanded, right? So after COVID, I view it like it went from tipping waiters, waitresses, to like coffee shops and takeout and compute counter service that's asking you for a tip. And it's like, what the hell did you do? You just worked the cash register. You know what I'm saying? Right. And so it's one of those things that got goofy, bro. Like, it got out of control. But at the same time, there's two different lenses that we can look at this, right? I always, you know me by now, I always kind of try to take a human lens to everything. I always do. I always try to take. I really do, man. Like, that's that, and I would say that that's me to a fault.
Yeah,
I've been screwed by some of the closest people that I know, you know, and it's because I always try to be an optimist, and I always try to think about the better part. Right. But it got out of control, bro. After COVID, I would agree with you. Something changed. There was like this social pressure and this like guilt trip. And then all of a sudden you start seeing it on your digital screen when you swipe your credit card. Right. And it's like, wait a minute, dude, like, what's going on? You know, you guys pulled a fast one on me, right?
Yeah. Yeah. No, they got service fees. Like, up here in the north, man, they got these restaurants out here that'll add an additional service fee. And when you ask them what the service fee is, they said, oh, that's an additional thing that the restaurant puts on. And I said, for who? Well, it's for the restaurant. And it's like, look, I'm already paying for the restaurant. I'm paying you $16 for a sandwich. Okay. A sandwich that I could go to Jersey Mike for, because I want to go to the local guy opposed to the big conglomerate, just to support my local people. But at the same time, I'm paying you $16 for a sandwich, but now I got to have a service fee on top of it. And then you're asking me, in addition to that, to tip you on that little thing. And it's like you said, it's gotten ridiculous. You go to the gas station to put $30 of gas in, which is already, we're making life decisions when we go to the gas pump. And then I'm buying a pack of seeds, but yet now the little thing comes up, and do I give a tip for seeds? What is going on here? It's crazy, man.
We're dealing with a whole different emotional dynamic, man. It's like you got your tip screens, right? And then you got to face your social judgment. And then you want to feel, and then you're fearing like you want to feel like you're looking cheap, right? You don't want to look cheap. It's a mind game, bro. It really is. It's one of those things that it's like, you're feeling forced to tip for non-service interactions.
Bro, I learned this in Vegas. I would tell my wife, look, we go to Vegas, you order the drinks. Like, when you're out on the casino floor, you order the drink.
Hey, Vegas is out of control, bro.
Bro, this was years ago that I started doing this already, because I already saw that it was out of hand. And I sat there and I said, you order the drinks, babe. And she's all like, well, what do you mean? And I said, because look, anytime I order a drink from this waitress, she's thinking I got to give her 10, 15, $20 for a drink, for her to bring me a drink. And at the same time, I'm looking at this, but yet if you order that drink, you ain't tipping her 10, $15. You're tipping her $2. So I started doing that with my wife, because I just started seeing things. And look, I'm not a cheap bastard, but at the same time, I ain't trying to tip the waitress for bringing me a bottle of beer. I'm going to tip you $10 for a drink that cost me 12. If I were to buy that on the street, I'm going to pay 12, but I get it for free, but I'm almost paying for the drink already by tipping me $10. So it's like, look, this guide that I saw, and tell me if you agree or disagree with some of these things. There's a tipping guide for 2026, and it said full service restaurants. Now, I think the distinction that we make for a full service restaurant is something that you're going to that has an ambiance and all the things, all the bells and whistles to it. They're saying an average of 18 to 20% is what you should tip. I agree. They talk about fine dining. Fine dining is 20 to 25%. And then they have counter service, fast casual. And I would imagine that that's kind of like, I don't know, for me and you, or for me, it's definitely like the burrito spot. That goes from 0 to 15%. And then takeout is 10 to 15%. Buffet is 10 to 15%. And bartender, $1 to $2 per drink is what you should get, or 15 to 20% of the bill. So I can kind of agree with those things, especially the buffet. I know there isn't very many buffets now, but you should tip a couple bucks, because those people are constantly, there's always somebody not showing up at those places to go to work. So everybody's under pressure. And I agree with that, with what you said earlier. What do you think?
I'm for it, man. That seems like a good scale, I guess, to go off of, right?
Because this breakdown, I'm going to tell you, Jess, this breakdown, bro, is crazy.
It does seem reasonable to me. I don't really have any.
They also have delivery and transportation things like food delivery, DoorDash, Uber Eats, and such. That it should be 15 to 20% minimum, $3 to $5. Pizza delivery, 15 to 20% minimum, $3, because we're not paying that much for. We're paying what, $20, $25, depending on how many pizzas you get. You're gonna one or two pizzas. If you get two pizzas, it's probably gonna cost you about $50. And then you have your ride share, Uber, Lyft, 15 to $20. A taxi, 15 to 20%. Sorry about that. Taxis, 15 to 20%, and then personal services. And we talked about this a little bit earlier. Hairstylists should get 15 to 20%, and I agree with that 100%, because my barber makes me look devastating. That's what I'm talking about, bro. But that I can agree with that. And massage therapy, 15 to 20%. Nail technicians, 15 to 20%. And I know you got that, bro, because I hear you do your toes, right? You do the manicure, pedicure.
Man, I'm blessed. My mom, she had a beauty salon, and my daughter's a cosmetologist. So, I'm always squared away when it comes to that.
Here's Jeff.
Yeah, get my pedicure. Yeah, I get it all done, man. I get it all done. So it's good.
Right.
It's all good.
Even hospitality, because when we go on vacation, we make sure we always take care of the ladies who come in, the ladies and gentlemen who come in and clean the room and stuff like that. We always make sure to take care of housekeeping, the bellhops, the valets, we the concierge, the room service people, we make sure we take care of everybody. But you do have to think about this. If you're there for 5, 6, 7, 10 days, that those $5 here, $10 there, that shit adds up quick.
Well, let's take Vegas for example. Customer service, I felt maybe 15 years ago was prioritized. I feel like you can price yourself out of good customer service, right? I feel like corporate greed can lead to a regressive reaction when it comes to providing good customer service. I believe that it can actually influence bad service, right?
Yeah.
It could go sideways on you, man. And you see it in Las Vegas. Like, I did the math, man, because we used to go a lot, and I felt like, I can spend a week in Cabo or 2 weeks in Cabo for what I spend in 4 days here. And this is all just based off, like paying the concierge or the guy that goes and gets your car, and paying for rooms, paying extra for the room service, and paying just all these added fees. It almost feels like it's more like you're paying for corporate greed than what you're actually paying for the service. You get what I'm saying? It's almost a regressive issue that you're seeing.
Right. And you're absolutely right, because my wife and I, we used to go to Laughlin a lot because I like Laughlin more than Vegas. Right. And I understand Laughlin is small, but maybe because I'm older and I don't drink like I used to, I don't party like I used to. So I'm more of a slower pace, but we still drive into Vegas to go to a show or do something like that. But we'll stay in Laughlin on the river, bro. That's kind of our thing. But
yeah.
When I measured out how much it would cost us to have a nice weekend in Laughlin, which would include Vegas, going to Vegas for a show, right, it was actually the same price that we would pay that if we were to go to fly up to Cabo and an all-inclusive hotel. It was the same amount of money.
And that's the thing, right? So that I can always go back to COVID when everything opened back up. It's almost like these casinos forgot about the travel industry, man, and the options that customers have. They're gonna right away. Of course it's convenient if you live in California to go over to Vegas, but if you're having to fork out a couple grand in Vegas to eat buffet food, then you're gonna look at that and you're gonna go back to that kitchen math that I always talk about. And you're going to say, you know what, man, we should have flew out to Cabo, stayed on the beach in an all-inclusive. They probably got a casino in the hotel that we're staying at, and we could have got the best of both worlds. You know what I'm saying? And so it's just one of those things. People are going somewhere else. Believe me, people haven't stopped vacationing. They're just not going to Vegas because they took a regressive approach when it comes to their finances, man, when it comes to making money. I truly believe that you can, how could I say this? Tactfully, you can basically bill your way out of your own business.
Yeah.
You can basically just charge so much and just charge your way out. You can shut your own business down by charging too much. And that's what's going on in Vegas. People are just like, wait a minute, I got options. I can go somewhere else.
You're right. I mean, with the local casinos, with the Indian tribes and so forth, when you go to places that are closer to you, you do have more options. And Vegas is starting to do something that I haven't seen them done that I can ever think, which is they're going to all inclusive. I don't know if you've heard about this, but
Mm.
some Vegas casinos are doing an all inclusive. Now, I've seen some reviews on this, and they're not that great. I'm not telling you that it's an all inclusive like when we go to Mexico or something, or you go to some other place. It's not that kind of all inclusive, but it is a all inclusive that includes a meal in the morning, a meal in the afternoon, and a meal, and their free voucher is what it is. But you can only order off of from a certain restaurant or certain restaurants, and you can only order off of a certain part of the menu and not the whole menu. So,
So,
but they're trying it, right? They're trying it because they're hurting because not everybody is going to Vegas now.
yeah, I seen a travel vlog on YouTube about that, and the dude was kind of limited to hot dogs and nachos. So
Yeah.
I don't know how they're gonna sell that. You know,
Well, they
It-
got to turn somewhere for the simple reasons, like you said, they have pushed away all of and I consider myself part of that group, which is the lower middle people that look. I'm not a heavy roller. I don't go in there with $10,000 for the weekend. That's not who I am. But I'm gonna play a couple of slot machines. I may get to a table. But then I want to have the fun of Vegas where I get to walk up and down and travel, or maybe have a little bit of money to go somewhere or do something or see something, because there is a lot of shit to do, but it's all expensive. So, I got to be careful with my dollar. And at the same time, I want to have a good time. But once it exceeds this thing, I'm priced out. I'm priced out. And people from Tennessee, Oklahoma, and places like that would fly into Las Vegas to have a quick weekend. Those people aren't coming anymore. They're staying in their state and going to the local casinos that are 2 to 3 hours away, and they would rather take that trip than to fly over to Vegas, man, and drop a rent payment, to not get anything in return.
let me give you a good example of what's going on in Vegas from a personal standpoint, right? We would go once a month. We would just go once a month. We would just travel out there once a month. I'd go there with my mom. My mom's been going there since she was young, and she had the Diamond VIP memberships and all the casinos, right? But there was one casino that, I'm not going to say who it was, but she would always go there. And they knew her face. She didn't even have to get in line. They took care of her. They showed her to her room, took her bags. She didn't have to go through all the other stuff.
Yeah.
When the owner died to that casino, they cut her off.
Ooh, really?
Cut her off. You're talking about somebody that was patronizing that casino for over 30 years, dropping thousands of dollars, literally thousands of dollars in that casino. Okay?
Wow.
Every month.
Wow.
But the new owners, which was the kid to the owner of that casino, treated my mom like she was a complete stranger, and our whole family.
No loyalty.
Well, not just that, it just got goofy. It's like it's almost like this quick. It's almost like I love the newer generation. I don't like talking bad about the newer generation, but I feel like when it comes to corporate, at a corporate level, I feel like something just took a turn for the worst.
Right.
When it comes to how you treat your customers,
Right.
especially returning customers. You should have a list. You should know who your returning customers are. If you plan to stay alive, if you plan to survive, you got to know how to keep customers and how to keep them coming back. So right away, I said, if you can forget about a person that's been coming to your casino for over 30 years, and just treat them like whatever, then, bro, you're losing money. You're losing money.
Well, that's who built Las Vegas, was all the non-winners that were there for just fun. And they've pushed those people out. And then, like I said, with the overextension of everything, not only just tipping, But, you know, the fact that they charge you to park at their casino, then they charge you a resort fee at your casino, at that casino. I mean, like what we do is, you know, we drive in from Laughlin and we park over at the golf flight or whatever that thing is, because it's free parking right there. And then we Uber downtown. So, you know, but we get away from the parking because I don't even like going into the casinos because now I have to pay a parking. And if I valet park it, that's costing me 30, 40 bucks. It's just, it's a fucking fiasco, man. And, you know, that's one thing that I think as I was talking in this foodie group, they were saying, why doesn't the restaurant just pay people a salary like they pay the cooks? Okay, just a regular salary. And if they get a tip, you know, tip is not required, but a tip is appreciated. And let's move back to that because, you know, when I hear things like, you know, this person came in, there was 7 of them and it's, you know, 130 bucks and they left me $8 as a tip. Yeah, that sounds bad. But at the same time, I don't know what the service you gave, but that is unfair, especially here in the state of California. I don't know about other places, but here in the state of California, they don't even allow the no tax on tips. It's federally not taxed, but state-wise, California is like, nah, fuck that. We're still going to fucking charge you, which is crazy, right? You know, I mean, the government says, hey, we're not going to tax on tips, but the state's like, fuck that. We're going to still tax you. And they don't observe that. So we're only screwing our people, you know, I mean, people at those entry-level jobs, because that's what those jobs are, a lot of them. And if we're not going to give them a break, pay them the damn salary, give them, you know, the 15, 20, 25 bucks an hour, which is what they're paying the staff in the back, pay them that. And if we tip because of what the initial essence of tipping was about service to the table. That's what tipping the waitress or waiter was about. And I think we've moved away from that to this weird place of, I expect this,
right?
I'm going to earn this. So I think that's the problem that we have here today with a lot of younger people, which is we expect a lot of shit without doing anything for it. What do you think?
I guess it depends on just what field we're talking about, right? What area of business we're talking about, or where we're going, right? It just depends. But yeah, if we're gonna generalize it, I would agree with that. I would agree that there's expectations. There's expectations, and they forget that the customer has expectations too.
100%. We all have that. I agree with you. And Jess, that's definitely hey Luz, how you doing? Miss Chavez, thanks for joining the panel here. Yeah, no, you're right, Jess. This is something that's it's been on my mind lately, and then I saw that blow up on the foodie channel thing that I have, or the little group that I have, but it became a real topic of conversation. And, you know, I think Marcella would have been really deep in this one because, you know, she's well versed with what it is. Because I didn't know a lot about this stuff too, that the waitresses will tip or they'll share the tip with the people, like they'll clean off the tables and stuff like that they'll share a tip with them. I didn't know that. And the people in the back, like the cooks and stuff, they don't necessarily share that with them because they're paid normal rates of pay, right, and not this scale weird thing that they do with waitresses. So I didn't know a lot of that shit.
Yeah, and that's kind of going back to what I was saying. You know, their pay fluctuates.
100%. So check this out. I love that conversation because again, you know, it's all the bullshit that's happening over here, and I'm sure everywhere else because I keep hearing about it. But let's move forward. And this is an interesting topic. This next one is about the Karmelo Anthony case, which is about a young man at a track meet who went to a track meet and got into an altercation with another young man, Austin Metcalf. And they got into some sort of dispute about Karmelo Anthony being in the area in which the team was, this Austin Metcalf's team was under a tent at this track meet. It was their school's tent. And this Karmelo Anthony goes to a different school and just sat there, and they had some sort of dispute. And they were telling this young man, Anthony, that, you know, he needed to move. There was a dispute between them. Apparently, this Metcalf kid pushed or touched or moved this Anthony kid, and he stabbed him in the chest, and the young man Metcalf eventually died from his wound. This whole court case thing has taken on a life that is, I have to say, putting a crack between us all from not a perspective. Now, this is just my perspective. I don't see this as something that's going to put a line between us as black people, Hispanic people, white people, Asian people. I don't see that. I just see ratchet people and trash people against people with morals and common sense. And I think that is going to be the divide, for the simple reason is because when I see what's happening or what happened in this case, I look at it from a logical standpoint. And then when I see and I feel what I'm watching makes me think something else. So, because there's so much misinformation about this. And I think that this is a terrible thing that's happened in our society today, because it's making us take an ugly look at the differences between people with responsibilities and people who are responsible for their actions, and then other people who want to blame everybody else for their actions. And then you have the other people with the moral compass and their supposed high ground, which they're waving their finger at people and then telling them how they're doing bad, but yet they're still bad people themselves. So we have so many dynamics in this. And I went through it and I was looking at a lot of stuff. There's a lot of misinformation in this that invokes this emotion in you, me too, I'm included, where, you hear these stories and then you find out didn't happen, wasn't true. But it's such a compelling story because you want to believe one side is telling the truth, and then the other side is supposed to tell the truth. And then you find out that they're not really telling the truth, or they're kind of telling the truth, but not the whole truth. And then, it's just it's so bad. But now that we're at the end of this and it's already been decided, this young man, Karmelo Anthony, pled not guilty due to self-defense. And he was found guilty of it. And he's now been sentenced to 35 years in prison. And I believe both of these young men were 17 years old when this incident happened. There are two lives that are changed forever. And this is a terrible situation. But both of these kids, and they were kids, literally they were kids. Both of them were considered good students, not problematic. Both of them, not problematic. So, with your background, and you've seen some things, I'm sure you've seen some people, and here's what I hear about this case. This is a good kid, Karmelo Anthony's good, great kid, doesn't have problems, got good grades, plays sports, good kid, and he's not a killer. And half of me says, okay, but my brain tells me, well, a killer isn't a killer until they've killed. Okay, now am I not okay? When I sit back and look at that, am I right? Am I feeling right? Because like I said, there's things in there that I don't like, but I have to tell the truth about it. But then there's things in there that I want to feel because somebody's telling me to feel a certain way about it, and I'm just like, man, I don't know if that maths out. What do you think, man? What do you think about that?
My last podcast when I talked about it, I didn't really discuss the social dynamics. I've done a lot of murder, stabbing investigations when I was in corrections. But we're dealing with a social dynamic here, right? We got two options, right? We got two choices. We can look at it from an evidentiary lens, right, where it's a level playing field and it's fair, or we can look at it from the lens of look, there's no way to talk about this without pissing a lot of people off, right? So I'm just gonna go into it and say, if we try to look at it from an oppressor type of lens, right? Then do we want that framework applied to our kids if our kid is on the end of that blade?
Mm-hmm.
Do we want that framework applied? So if our kid is on the end of that blade, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who it is. If your child, you got to think about your child. Okay. I feel like this is a non-negotiable. And honestly, if you have common sense, this is a non-negotiable because, as Marines say, if you want respect, don't stand behind me, stand beside me. Okay. So this translates into a lot of things, right? If you look at yourself as being the victim, you're not going to get any respect. If you're always playing the victim, I'm not going to respect you, man. I'm not. So I don't want to deviate from what I'm saying, though. So what would you choose if your child was stabbed in the heart? Would you want your child to be examined? Would you like the court to take an evidentiary approach and which will lead to a conviction, or an oppressor approach? Make your mind, take a choice. I feel like we would all say, you know what? We need to look at this for what it is and for what happened. And we need to look at the facts of the case, because none of us would want our child at the end of that blade.
Do you think that because so many people who claimed to be on the inside and understanding a relative and or somebody who was giving what we all thought was inside information had an effect? Because I was watching some things, and let me bring this up, because this video clip I'm going to show you, this is some of the start and the middle and the end of some of these things that I've watched. And it's like, man, it's hard to believe that, like you said, from an evidentiary standpoint. But when you hear the parents say, look, we were railroaded, and not that I'm a legal scholar, because I'm not in any way, shape, or form, but my past of being a union steward and investigating what the articles were and stuff, violations against the contract and so forth, it does fall parallel with, the law. The law says A, the law has B, there's, all circumstantial evidence and so forth. So, there's a parallel in there that you have to have a logical approach and common sense approach when you're applying rules and regulations and laws. So let me bring this video up real quick. And tell me what you think of this.
He's 10 years old, and we live in a cruel world this day and time. The world has always been cruel, but today even more. It was self-defense. It was fuck around and find out. You fuck with the right person and you found out. Sorry it had to be that way. You should have never fucked with that little boy. And like I said, I have a 10-year-old son, and he goes outside, but I make sure he always have something on him to protect him, whether it's his cell phone, a sock of batteries, whatever I give him for protection, to protect himself, because he should be able to go outside and play like a normal kid without some little Billy, Bob, or Jimmy coming to fuck with him. Y'all got to teach our kids to stop messing with people just because of privilege. Because now, dude ain't even here no more. But that's his own fault.
This is the thing that you watch this, and I have two sons, and I've tried to teach them as they were growing up, going through high school, because look, how many times do you hear the crazy things that happen in high school where two kids get into it over a girl, or the bravado in which happens in sports and so forth, where two people can't back away from one another. I've seen that many, many, many times before, and I kind of understand what she's saying, but then on the other hand, I'm like, you can't. Where is the other part of that? Where's the flip side of that coin, which talks about common sense, walking away from things that put you in a risky situation, not putting yourself where you shouldn't be? Where was that conversation in what she was saying? Because I understand what she said. I just didn't hear the other side of that common sense conversation. What do you think?
Well, it's linear, right? The way she's presenting her case. Well, the way she's talking about it. Look, man, I feel like if we all want to participate in community sports, if we all want to participate in social gatherings, we all need to have skin in the game. We all need to have skin in the game, and the laws are out there to protect and defend all of us equally.
But how do we trust that I'm a firm believer in this is the only judicial system that we have, and if we need change, we have to change it. Otherwise, we can't bitch about it, because there's no use me bitching about something once I've already started to involve myself in the process, and then now cry about it that it's not working in my favor. Look, if there was something there to begin with, because this is what I hear in social media. This has always been a problem. People of color cannot, understand how, or outside of color cannot understand what we minorities go through, because anytime we go through the system, it is completely unfair and it's biased and it's stacked against us. Now, I'm also hearing that there are so many people that are saying things that are against this prosecutor and the father, I forgot his full name, Mr. Metcalf. They were saying that he was friends with the DA. They're saying that the DA is crooked, and I have a video about this, about how the DA is crooked. And tell me what you think about this, because I agree with you. I agree with you, Jess. We're supposed to trust the system, but what do you do when you can point out that the system has bad apples in it, and they're the ones in charge of being supposed to be working in our best interest? But let me bring up this video real quick and tell me what you think of this.
Play. Bring it on. I came out here, since you over here want to call this boy a murderer, then we're gonna take the covers off you. Ain't no way in hell that you take your damn DA this food. Did you know? Hold this, please. I got you. That there is a federal lawsuit for sexual harassment DA that was saying that Karmelo Anthony is a murderer, where you need to be a registered sex offender, sucker. Let me read. Black cow and kill the black cow, but you the whole DA out here. Oh, so you thought y'all was the only one that could go in PACES. And let me explain to you what PACES is. PACES is the database for federal lawsuits. See, we have a research team, baby, that's colder than the media. So let me go ahead and read a little bit of it to show you how disgusting this joke is.
It's serious.
After Jane Doe 1 refused defendant Willis, ain't that his name, Brad Willis? Oh, okay. Advances at the Galveston TDCAA conference, he treated her quite differently in the workplace. He began demeaning and berating her. In one closed-door meeting, he told her, "You think like a child, and I would treat you like a child." Defendant Willis likely appreciated the gender slurring that is implicit in a male supervisor telling a female employee that she thinks like a child. Oh, wait a minute, it gets better. Hold on. More than once, she tried to break free, but he held her tighter. These physical encounters were unwanted and sexual in nature. Jane Doe 1 eventually put in for a position in the Victim Assistance Division and got it in December 2020. This role put her under the supervision of Chief Prickle. With moaning continued. The most recent of the sexualized hugs back in April 2022. We got a damn freak for the DA. But
this is the district attorney and his assistant, the assistant DA, who were criminally charged in this lawsuit of sexual harassment and other obviously conduct unbecoming of a professional. So this is what she's talking about. Now, this sows the seeds of doubt on whether or not somebody can be professional, and yet in their personal life they're not professional. These things cause doubt in us, right? I mean, when they're talking about the DA kind of doing shit that's not right as a person and with a decent moral compass, and you're supposed to be above the law because, well, that's how we're supposed to treat you, right? Is above the law because you're the one who's enforcing these things, and you're showing a side of yourself in this lawsuit that causes doubt. Do we still have the same, do we still have the same thought process of saying, okay, well, I can trust the system because even though that guy's doing something that's a little shady that I might not agree with, do I still trust his decision-making in prosecuting my child? What do you think of that?
Well, I view it as a pivot, I view it as a pivot. I view it as a deflection. I don't think that you can be a DA and not get scorched every now and then when it comes to different situations. Plus, you're in a political position, really, and so you're going to get a lot of deflection, a lot of pivoting. You're going to get a lot of accusations that are going to try to pull you off of, that are going to try to cast out on the actual case. I don't know. I don't work along those lines. I feel like when a case is, and this is only from what I've read and from what I've researched regarding the Karmelo case, the defense did a horrible job.
Yes.
He could have pled, right? He could have made a plea. What were they thinking, right? What were they thinking? I don't understand it. I don't understand why they took this route. Were they trying to? It looks ugly, man. The optics are ugly for his defense. It really looks like they were crowdfunding, and he was used. He was used, and midterms are coming up, and different politics are going on. I don't mean to make this political or anything, but I feel like, man, I feel like the defense really screwed that one up bad.
I agree. I don't disagree with that. And and you said, like, I think you nailed it on the head when you say the optics of this. But here's the part that bothers me the most. That woman went hard on the DA with what she was showing as proof. But here's where we get into the really?
Right. I feel the same way. I just feel like, yeah, but what does this have to do with the case? I'm not.
And this is what I think what the point that she was trying to make. And I can respect this point because obviously if we have a teacher who's teaching children and they've done something that's morally we don't agree with, but isn't really against the law, we boot them. Like back where I'm from in the 805, there was a board member who posted naked pictures of himself on an adult paid website of dating. Okay. Somebody found out that he did that and they brought it out and he resigned. Okay. Because the optics looked horrible at this. He was involved in something that wasn't illegal and was practiced a lot on this website. of dating. So he didn't do anything outside the scope. But the fact that he was a board member, people were putting it on him that he was doing something that morally was not in line with who we wanted to have represent the children as a board member. So he was taken out. And I can see her point saying, look, if this DA and assistant DA have been charged in this lawsuit that they have done things that are, not professional and so forth, how maybe they shouldn't be in judge of other people. So I understand that part. Okay. But let me flip the coin. Let me turn it on the other side. This lawsuit that she's talking about that was done was actually settled. And there was a payment that was made to these individuals that had initiated this lawsuit. And I believe that they got several $1 million. The payout was $1.75 million as a settlement to resolve the workplace discrimination and retaliations claims. Now, although there was no admission of guilt by either one of the people that were first accused, as a matter of fact, the part of the settlement agreement on this was to rescind the culpability of calling it a sexual misconduct to professional misconduct in the workplace, not of a sexual nature. And neither one of those individuals of the DA pled guilty to either of the charges, any of the charges, and they were both exonerated. So that's something which I find, extremely important that's missed here.
Well, the thing is, the case, the factor. So are we going to say, oh, you know what? We need to retry Karmelo Anthony now because this dude's a freak?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like most people have these, they're a little bit more critical when it comes to examining. Common sense people are a little bit more critical when it comes to examining the factors of a verdict, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't really like to talk about the way a lot of these people are making it a racial issue, because I don't want to feed into that. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to feed into the oppression Olympics, right? I don't want to do that. I feel like you're making it a racial issue, and it's not. It's not really a racial issue. This dude, so dude's a freak, man. So we need to go change the verdict. I don't know, that just doesn't line up with me. That might take a different examination. That might be something that you look at afterwards.
Right. That's perfect. That's a perfect way to say it, because you know what? It's logical and it's methodical in saying that, look, in order to beat this beast, we have to chew a little bit at a time, and then
Right.
go through the process and fix them as we go along. But to make such casting dispersions about something that's an allegation, because again, that lawsuit was an allegation which she failed to mention, but at the same time, she put it all out there on blast, because anytime you have these kinds of lawsuits, when it talks about sexual harassment and so forth, these kinds of things they have some of the most explosive language in it. And then when it boils down, it turns out to be that there was probably more of a misunderstanding in a lot of things, and then other people hyping up what they thought or something to that nature. Not to say that it didn't happen altogether, but maybe just didn't happen in reality, but it happened more in perception. So, those are problematic things when you bring this. And I found it funny that she brought this out, but yet never talked about the end part of this case. So, again, flipping the coin to the other side, because the optics look bad when you only read one side of that charge package.
This, in my opinion, from the two videos that I've seen, it hurts Karmelo's case. It really does. It doesn't help it at all. It does not help it at all.
What do you mean it doesn't help? What do you mean?
Because it looks like deflection. It really does. It looks like they're not, these people that are making these rage bait videos. It looks like they're not really talking about the specifics of the case. They're not really mentioning that there was black witnesses that spoke against Carmelo's description of what happened. So it really deviates from the sensitive nature of what's going on right now.
I agree.
But you know, I was that kid in Sunday school that got kicked out for raising his hand and asking the wrong questions. So you know, and I don't mean it to be hateful. I don't mean it to be hateful at all. But if I feel like this, right? Especially with the Karmelo case, if we have to tippy toe around certain people when we're talking about it, if we have to tippy toe around their emotions and their feelings and all that, those are the wrong people to talk to, man. You know, you gotta be able to sit down and just say, hey, look, man, it's a shit sandwich. It's a shit sandwich, bro. It smells like shit. It looks like shit. It's a shit sandwich. The defense was shit. The what do you call it? The jurors, the black jurors that were seated, that were not seated, they eliminated themselves. They showed bias themselves. So it's a shit sandwich all the way around.
So let me jump in real quick here. It was noted, and I don't have this particular clip, but you do lay something on this. You know, it was noted that it was an all white jury. Now, this is what I heard from the parents, that it was an all white jury, and that was already unfair for the simple reason is that it's supposed to be your peers. You know, who knows your plight other than other people that live in the neighborhood or understand the plight in which you've gone through. And that's when this particular group of people will say, hey, we've gone through more shit because of who we are. At least we should have representation on the jury. And I would kind of tend to agree for this reason. Let me put this at you. If I do something hoodish, all right, I'm in the hood, I'm hanging out with my people, and somebody comes on and, you know, steps on my white shoes, and I get a little bit upset, they get a little upset, we get into a fight, and an accident happens between us, and, you know, I break his jaw or he breaks my jaw. And then we go to court because there's criminal mischief in there, and there's a jury all from Beverly Hills. Now, how are these people going to understand me and my neighborhood and what I'm about? That would seem a little bit unfair to me, that I have no representation in these people. So when I say, look, you don't understand, this was the cause, that this was what the effect was because of this in my neighborhood and how we grew up and how we do this. Do you think that holds some sort of merit, that there was no black jurors on the panel?
No, not at all. Because the reason I say this is because, like, going back to what I was telling you, we all need to play together. Mm-hmm. So if I'm going to go over to a nice neighborhood for a golf tournament, and I decide to bring my hood antics there, if I'm going to go into an area, take my kids, and then you're going to take your kids, and it's a nice area, we want everybody to get along. So this linear way of thinking about we're just going to do whatever we want here and expect to get away with it. No, people live in close communities for a reason, bro. People live in gated communities for a reason, and it's kind of the same. It's the same concept, right? When you have your kids, become a part, say like Little League, right? Community sports. You're buying in, man. You're buying in. You're expecting that your kids are going to be safe. You're expecting that your environment's going to be safe, and everybody has to participate in keeping it safe. So when one individual decides that he wants to violate some just basic common social decency, then it's on him, man. The people in that area and the people in that general, he's gonna get tried by the people that he chose to go over there and act like a fool. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I think we all have personal agency, right? I don't know if I discussed this with you, but I do believe I was talking to this issue with somebody else. You know, I feel like politicians nowadays, they want to get paid to treat people right. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I feel like that's something that we all need to have. We all need to treat people right. We all need to teach our kids to treat other people right. We all need to teach our kids to have personal agency, you know? And matching killing a fly with a sledgehammer is something that every kid should understand. You're not gonna match your opponent with a death blow.
Yeah.
If that kid pisses you off or pushes you, you're not gonna take out an AK and just blow them away. It's just a dynamic that people are starting to realize, like, hey, you know what? We all got to protect our kids.
Right.
And it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. So if I'm going to go somewhere and I'm going to take my kids somewhere, their asses better behave.
Yeah. But I mean, I don't disagree with that. I mean, and that's where we take responsibility and ownership of ours and how we raise our kids and what we expect our kids to do and how they should react when things happen to them, because we all understand that it's not when life kicks you. It's, if life kicks you, it's when life kicks you, because it happens to every single one of us. But do you think that it's a disadvantage to not have any Black people on that jury? And what I was reading this article about this, and I figured I would check out why there were no Black jurors on there. There was a question by the prosecution that says that we should probably keep this away from people that work within the school system, such as teachers, the maintenance guys, and all those people that work within the school system. And they were saying that because it's too close to home for some of them, because what if you have, and here's a scenario in which was vetted out. If you have a child, if you have a case where a high school kid attacks one of his teachers, and then, that goes to trial, you don't really want, as a prosecutor and as a defense attorney, you don't really want somebody who may be part of the school system as a teacher at another school or another district within the county has gone through a similar thing, because they may have a bias against it. Now, I was reading, like, why were Black people not allowed on the jury? That was one of the reasons. And the other reason was some of their answers. And some of the answers were so far, understandable, I should say, that they were just more understandable. One of them, a juror was asked that, would you be able to prosecute a person and give them a sentence that could be up to life in prison, or, from 0 years to life in prison? And the juror said, I don't know if I could send a brother to jail. And that was one of the reasons for his dismissal. Another person said that morally and religiously, they don't believe that they would be able to keep him from that it would not be able to keep him from being able to sentence someone like that. There was another person who worked for a school district, and I don't know if they were a teacher or janitor or whatever, but they said this hits too close to home for them. So I was like, okay, so this is the reasons. But I also looked up whether it was an all-white jury like it was said to be, and it wasn't. There were, I believe, 5 out of the 12 sitting jurors were of minority, were minorities. And I want to say that there was Asian, Indian, Hispanic, and I I don't know if there was another one. I don't really remember. But it wasn't just an all-white jury like it was told. But yet nobody's talking about how these jurors were saying honestly, like, hey, I don't know if I could do this. I don't know if I feel this way. They were being honest in the jury. And isn't that what we're supposed to do, right? We're supposed to be honest as a juror saying, look, I don't know.
And non-biased.
Right. So if we have, like, for example, how would you feel, Jess, if I did this? I come on my podcast and I say, hey, if you're going to be a potential juror and you see that there is this case of this Mexicano doing something, he got into a fight with this, this white police officer, and I'm just making up a story here, white police officer, and he got into a fight. There was a provocation. They provoked a fight between them. They got into a fight. The officer, beat up the Hispanic, or the Hispanic was beating up the officer, and then wound up going to jail for striking an officer, which is a felony, and all of those kinds of things. And if you're a potential juror, don't say that you have a feeling about it. Don't say like, hey, you know what? I don't know if I feel good about this because I think that cop was probably bad and he was looking for trouble, or, hey, I don't know if I could see this right because I think that Mexicano was in the right. And I say you should tell those people what they want to hear so you can get on the jury. Don't tell them that you're going to be biased about it. Don't tell them you have a feeling about it that could be negative. Just tell them what they want to hear so you can get on the jury. What would you tell me if I was doing something like that?
Meaning if you took a bias because we were both the same.
Well, está Mexicano, he's Mexican. That officer was white. And you know what? If it means you could get on a jury, don't tell them the real feeling that you have behind it.
Yeah, because you eliminate yourself by saying that. You're basically, the way it works I kind of missed a little bit of what you said, but because I was thinking at the same time, sorry. But I recently did jury duty. Okay. And when they're eliminating jurors, the defense and the prosecution ask you a lot of questions before they even consider. That's not even including the questions that the judge is going to ask you. Okay, and they're not gonna grill you per se, but they're going to ask you like, so do you really feel like you can't be fair? They ask you that question. So Karmelo's defense was just bad.
No, I agree with that.
Yeah. So the juror, that third juror that said that he couldn't see himself, locking up another brother, really failed, man.
But what if I did that? What if I said, hey, if you have a chance to be on the jury and you have a feeling because you grew up in a place where cops do shit to people and you've seen it firsthand, you shouldn't say that. What you should say is, no, I can be fair, even though you know in your heart that you're not going to be fair because you have a bias. Would I be doing our people a service? Would I be doing people a service by telling them that? What would you tell me?
Oh man, that's one of those things, brother, that
how dare you?
You're asking me. I'm the type of guy that says, yeah, I'll be biased. Don't pick me.
Yeah, Jess. Mira, here's what I'm telling you, Jess. I understand. You know something. You know a little bit something about the inner workings of the police department, especially that police department, and you know them vatos are doing things that are not very good toward the Hispanic community. So you get a chance to get on that jury. You don't tell them, "Hey, I know some things." You just tell them, "No problem, sir. I can be unbiased."
Yeah, I could be unbiased. Yeah, when it comes to something like that, yes.
But what I'm saying is, would I be wrong for telling you? Even though you're going to be biased, tell them you're not. Even though you have a feeling about it, like, hey, these cops are no good.
Yeah, I think you'd be wrong.
So with that in mind, I want to show you something. And this thing kind of took me back when I saw it. And I said, man, we are not doing good for our people and understanding how we need to operate in this society if this is what we're going to be doing. Check this out.
Carmelo Anthony, play the clip.
If they say, "Can you be fair?" Don't say, "No, I'm not finna put a black man in jail." Don't say that, okay? Because if that's what you're gonna say, you could have stayed home. You have to go and be like, "No, I will hear the evidence. I can be fair." Don't say, "I hate white people and I don't care what he did." Don't do that. That's what people were doing in this case. Okay. And then everybody's like in an uproar because there's no black people on the jury, when damn near half of the black people who could have been on the jury canceled themselves out. Don't do that. Okay. So don't do that. See, somebody in the comments talking about that's what got me put out. Don't do that. When you go up there, say, "No, I have never heard about this case. I can be fair." Say that. Okay. And then mean it, believe it a little bit. Don't tell them you can't be impartial. You could have stayed home.
Because then you're going to be Easter egg. They say you're going to be, I'm rooting for everybody black.
Yeah.
I would have to remember that because I would be in there like, I would almost be too eager. Oh God. I would probably be too eager just to go flip mode. Do you? Yep, I do believe whatever you do.
They're going to kick you out.
You just said, I don't know who that person was that said that the other day. What I believe today, this is a video of you saying, I didn't say those things. I believe in the rule of law. I believe.
Ma'am, all we asked was, what was your first name?
Law and order. My first name is Law and Order.
Be like, get her out of here.
My first name is Sustained.
Y'all be regular.
Overruled.
Just be regular.
Oh God, I would be in there. They'd be like, just get her out of here because something might be wrong with her.
Y'all.
Something just get no. My first name is guilty.
Listen, everybody else that be called, they be at the very least acting like they can be fair.
Yeah.
So don't go in there and act like all of a sudden you have to be the most honest person you've ever been. Listen, don't tell them I said that, but I'm just saying, people get on these juries and be.
My sister's name
racist.
Is I'm not a lawyer. So I think I am the lawyer.
No.
Between Law and Order and CSI, I grew up on those shows. And now my sister, let me tell you something. I could do your job.
Yeah. That kind of thing, I'm looking and it's like, man, it's disappointing because what are we telling our people?
To lie.
Right. To get on a jury so you could be biased. And it's like, that's not how we're supposed to work. It's not. Go ahead.
I'll give you an example of that, right? I was asked to do jury duty, I want to say about 8 months ago. Okay. And me working in the correctional system for all these years, I know a lot of people, man. I know a lot of people in different agencies. I know a lot of convicts, man. I know a lot of guys that have been around. I consider myself a person that was always fair and was always firm and consistent. And I feel like I remained consistent throughout my time in my career. Did I make everybody happy? No, I don't think so. But I did my best, right? And I'm sure there's people out there that know that. But when I was called for this last time to go do jury duty, the individual that was the suspect, the guy that was being accused of doing something, he had a lengthy criminal history. Okay, he was a Mexicano. And I requested to be pulled from the jury only because, and the way I brought it to the judge's attention was, hey man, what if I had an interaction with this individual? What if I had numerous interactions with this individual? What if the day that he comes out and I see him for the first time, I'm like, oh, hell no. So I immediately said, you know what, pull me from this because I don't want to be biased. Right. I would be doing that individual an injustice, but I feel like that's how we need to be. We need to be consistent. We need to be consistent. As much as we might dislike an individual, it's fair. It's fair to be inconsistent. It's fair to be consistent, right? It's only the right thing to do. man, it's not a perfect system, John. It really isn't, right? You're hearing this from a retired corrections officer. There's bad players out there, man.
Yeah.
There's bad players out there. They're all it takes is one, right, to ruin the whole one person to ruin everybody's reputation. But I like to think that most educators, most people that are in law enforcement, most people that are in services, whether it's maintenance, whether it's janitorial, whether it's working out there for Caltrans and stuff like that, I like to think that people are generally good people, because there's always just that two people that ruin it for everybody else.
Much agreed. Much agreed.
It is what it is.
And you're right about that, for the simple reason is that also a big hot ticket item of conversation was about this Chow, Asian liquor store owner, I believe a 14-year-old young black man who pulled out a gun, or they had an exchange of visuals of the gun, and Mr. Chow, I believe his name was, he fired on, he killed the kid, and he went through the jury. The prosecution tried to get him for murder or manslaughter, I'm not sure which, and he was found not guilty. But here's the thing about that case. Out of the 12 jurors, I believe 6 or 5 of them were African American. So these are people that, think about it. And even in this particular, and he was found not guilty. And even in this case of the Anthony case, there were witnesses that were young black students that also testified on behalf of both the prosecution and the defense, that corroborated the story, that this was not, in their mind, as they testified, escalated to a physical threat, that that, what is it called, self-defense should have been used. And as a matter of fact, Anthony's lawyer, when he first came on the scene, he said exactly that. He said that this is going to be a hard case to defend under self-defense, and it would be difficult. It would be difficult to make, given that the victim was unarmed. He also said that the prosecution will likely argue that Anthony provoked Metcalf. A person claiming self-defense cannot provoke the incident and then claim self-defense when they act. Howard said. Now, Mike Howard is Karmelo Anthony's attorney, and he's the one defending him, saying that this is not a good thing. And he said on the defense side, and this is in an interview that he gave, he says they would likely argue that the young man was scared. He alleged being jumped multiple people in a panic. And this is his lawyer. And to go by what you said earlier, which is that defense attorney already talked about an uphill battle because of the circumstances. And then obviously knowing things about the case that none of us knew at the time, which was the self-defense thing, which is like, how do we claim self-defense when there was no prior between them? And here's the thing about both kids, neither one of them had criminal records. Neither one of them, there's nothing about either one of them being bullies or being, having animosity toward the other race. So all this race thing, and I believe Metcalf's father even alluded to this. It's not about race. It's not about, these are two young people who did something that they shouldn't have done, and we're left here with the aftermath.
Nobody wins. Nobody wins in these situations, man. And speaking of Metcalf's father, he's been crashing out online, and like I said, I always take a humane approach, I see things through a human lens. The man is grieving, and he's really just venting,
Yeah.
From my understanding, it affected his family. Of course it would, right? It would affect any of us. Um, I just couldn't imagine a twin brother holding his brother, watching him fade away.
Yeah.
You know, it's going to take time. I'm just kind of giving him a little bit of grace because he's going to crash out some more. I see it coming, and people are going to try to get clicks out of it. But, man, nobody wins in these situations, Karmelo didn't win, and another family lost their son and brother, and yeah, man, it's just bad all the way around, right?
It is, and there's nothing to be gained about this. And I actually saw that whole video that Metcalf's father that he said, and people are really clipping that. He did go hard on Anthony's mother for not showing to the sentencing, because he basically said you basically left your child there to stand alone in this sentencing phase. That that he saw that as like very like a very bad thing as a parent, not to stand with your child. And but I understand some of the things that he was saying from this respect. And like you said, you alluded, he is crashing out about some things, but I don't think it's the nuclear crash out that people are trying to make it to be for this reason, because he said a lot of stuff in there that nobody is talking about, which is, I didn't know this, but apparently at some point he went to the family of Anthony before they started some press conference that they were going to do. And he went there to try to tell the family before they went to their press conference that he wanted to try to bridge a gap between them and pray with them. And they told him to move on, to not bother them while they're going to do this. And I'm like, I didn't know that. And I'm like, did he do that? That's what he was saying. And then as I checked, yeah, they even talked about it at the press conference. Like, this guy's trying to interrupt us in this press conference. Like, he's trying to get clout. And it's like, as a defense attorney, I'm not one, but I know as a steward, if I have two people that butt heads about something and get into a possible fight or a fight, I'm looking to garner a favor from the other person to say, I forgive that person. Because now when it comes to sentencing, if it goes that way and this person is going to, I'm sitting in HR where these people are in front of a jury. If I can garner some favor from that person and these people forgive each other for not for having this hostile situation between them, that's garnering a favor for sentencing. That if that happens, because what if you had Metcalf's father going in front of the judge in the witness statements and saying, I forgive him. I don't forget, but I forgive him. And don't, this young man's life has already changed. Let's give him the benefit of a doubt and move forward and try to be there for him as well. And that's what he was saying in that video. And he went on to say a bunch of other things that I was like tripping out, like all the things that were said about his son that's still alive. Like, he should have died too. People were saying that. And this is a father that has to hear this. As a matter of fact, a relative of Anthony's had come on, and Kevin Hayes is his name. And he says that he wrote a post that Anthony defended himself against violent aggressors. The twins were being violent against him, and he called him a victim and his twin brothers bullies. He said that they tried to jump him. The claim was that they tried to take Anthony's belongings, broke his phone, and stomped on it. Now, everybody was running on that, saying that these two kids, now this father is looking at it from that perspective. Like, my kids are not bullies. I didn't raise them that way. And that's what he's saying. We all know that we could raise a kid some way and they go off into a different direction. Mm-hmm. But just to put facts on that, just to sprinkle a little reality on this, at no point in the testimony was any of that ever brought up or any of that ever said actually happened. It never happened. In testimony, there was nothing from anybody who was witness to these accounts, ever heard anything like that, nor did they assist even in on that as a testimony, saying that yes, these things happen. No, they all said no, that never happened. And they never, they never grabbed him up, they never tried to take his things, they never stomped his phone, and they never did any of those kinds of things. But it's that kind of shit that this father has to go through that's probably making him out of his fucking mind, especially with that gag order, because he hears all of these people talk all this shit about his kid that he feels is untrue. Now he feels that that's untrue, but there's nothing that was ever brought up by the defense. And if I was defending the kid, I would be trying to pull up anything that Austin Metcalf was a bully in school, or that he had problems with minorities or something. I would try to bring something, and there's nothing about either one of them, though. There's nothing about Anthony that said that he didn't like white people, that he didn't, that he was a bad student. But then I go back to that thing that we had talked about in the very beginning. A murderer, a killer isn't a killer until they kill. Okay? Accident or not. That's when you become that person or that thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, I can see where the senior is losing his fucking mind. I can see that because he's like hearing all this shit about his kid by people he doesn't know. And they're saying the most horrible things about him, his wife, and his daughter, and the second twin. And they're saying things like, oh, those guys are a bunch of, look at them. They have pictures of him and his kids when they went hunting. And they said, see, look how violent this guy is. And it's like, what the fuck?
It's real easy to take a side, man. And it's real easy to hate, especially with the imagery, right? You don't know if it's AI. You don't know if you got people urinating on the grave. Pictures of people urinating on the grave. And it's not whether it's people are going to say, oh, that's fake or that's real. It's not that. It's just that when, Mr. Metcalf opens up his phone and he sees an image of an individual urinating on his son's grave, man, can you imagine the rage that it would send anybody? And, and
yeah.
I'm not going to ever, for the record, I'll never attach this to the black community or to any other people. I don't want to make this a racial thing. I just think that it's just ignorant people that are going out there doing stuff like this. And it's not a racial thing for me, man. It really isn't. We all have reasons to hate everybody, man. We really do. I tell people, man, if I wanted to hate Asians, man, I'll give you about 1,000 reasons. If I wanted to hate my own people, I'll give you about 1,000,000 reasons. If I wanted to hate blacks, I'll give you another 1,000,000 reasons. We can go through life hating, right? We can go through life just hating everybody. But at the end of the day, man, we all gotta, it sounds so cliche, right? Oh, we all gotta get along. But it's conventional wisdom, brother. It really is.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that people don't want to listen to the simple facts. Yeah. They always want to attach some kind of conspiracy, some kind of deflection, some kind of
There's always a boogeyman, right? There's always a boogeyman.
Right. Yeah, they always want to put them little yellow Post-its on it, but what if? Well, what? No, dude, like it's not. That's not how it panned out. A lot of times it's just that. Like I thoroughly looked at that case, and it just seemed like, wow, it's one of those things where all the pieces of the puzzle, man, they just fell in place, and yeah, it was, that's the way it came down, the verdict.
And that's something. As a matter of fact, Sharon put up there. She says, they pick and choose, and that's true. That's true because they sometimes people who don't want to take accountability, and this just isn't one particular race. It's anybody. Because I've when I was a steward, I represented many people in many different scenarios and situations. And it's always, nobody has ever, I swear to you, in the 25 years that I was a steward, I never, ever, ever met anybody who told me the story that was unfavorable to them. Never. They all said, I didn't do it. They don't understand. It's their fault. I never had anybody sit there and go, yeah, I did do that. And yeah, I fucked that up. And yeah, I'm responsible for it. Never had anybody. The only time that they did that is when they were caught cold, dead to right after the investigation. And that was rough.
You'd be surprised though how much crap you can avoid, right? Because I am that guy. Like I'm the first one to rat myself out if I make a mistake, right? I'm that guy. I've made mistakes at work, and I just go straight to my supervisor and I just tell him I effed up.
Yeah.
And
that lies with the moral compass, right? That's you.
And sometimes, and believe it or not, man, throughout my experiences, 9 times out of 10, I've gotten more grace simply by saying, no, man, like if you were my supervisor and I screwed up and, it came down to my, what do you call the first state hearing or whatever.
Yeah.
And we're sitting there and what's the name of it? What's the legal term when you get a
pretrial?
Not pretrial. Anyway, we'll figure it out. But I'd always be that guy that was like, especially if I liked you as my supervisor, I would tell you, man, I messed up, man. I like working with you, but this ain't gonna happen again. I didn't know what I was thinking. I'm not gonna sit here and deny that I did what I did, but I don't got no beef with you. So if you're gonna hand me the punishment, hand it to me now. I don't want to be sitting around here for the next couple months. 9 times out of 10, I got leniency. It's just how it worked.
Yeah. But do you think, like, for me, here's kind of what I went through in work. We used to do this weekend thing, and I'll be honest with you, I forgot that it was my weekend, and we have to be there early in the morning to open up and stuff like that. And I called my supervisor. I woke up late and I sat there and I text my homie and I said, hey man, is it my weekend or your weekend? And he's like, nah, fool, it's your weekend. And I'm like, all right. So here I am, man. I'm literally about an hour and a half late, and it's going to take me about 35 minutes to get to work. And I'm like, fuck. So I call my supervisor and tell him, hey man, I just want to FYI you, it's my weekend. The reason the doors ain't open is because I forgot and I overslept. So my bad. I'm just letting you know I'm on my way. And, my supervisor, I left him a message, and my supervisor calls me on Monday and says, hey, man, you know what? Thank you, John. I appreciate that, because honestly, nobody was going to call me. And if you hadn't called me and told me, I never even would have known. But thank you for doing it that way, because if somebody would have called me and said, hey, the doors ain't open, I could say, you know what? Don't sweat it. John's on his way. He's running late. He will be there. He goes, instead of me getting the call saying, what are you talking about? Mm-hmm. So I used to tell guys, look, I'm no angel. By no means am I an angel. I have done plenty of things that were stupid. I've done plenty of things that were fucked up. I've done plenty of things. And I own anything that I did. And that's why I told people, look, I've left early. I've come late. I've took an extended break. I've done things that other people deny. And I'm like, just take it, man. It's yours. But everybody would do this thing. Now, I don't know you, Jess. Maybe you've seen this before. But I always used to laugh when I'd go to guys and say, okay, well, tell me, did you do this? Hey, man, I'm not trying to rat on anybody, but they all do it too. And I'm like, puta madre, serious, man? You're not a rat as you're ratting. What? We're here for you, not them. Oh, but they do it too, John. And I'm like, nah, man, we're here for you, bro. Nobody else. So take the pill. Like you said, bite into the shit sandwich because that's the one you prepared for yourself. So grab it with 2 hands and take a big ass bite because that's what you're going to have to do. But a lot of people don't want to do that, right? Nobody wants to mess up. Nobody wants to take responsibility.
People don't realize a lot of times the truth will set you free, man. It really will. You know, it's a like I said, it's better when you're working with your job steward and you're honest with them, because then you don't have him getting sidelined by factors that you didn't tell him later on. You know,
Yep.
And I know in my line of work we had a what you call vicarious liability. I don't know if you ever dealt with that.
Oh, what's that?
It's when someone else isn't doing their job and you show up and you see it, but you don't do nothing about it either, you know.
Okay.
And you can also get in trouble for not not dealing with the problem yourself,
Right.
or if maybe you were a supervisor and you didn't train your guys up to run a certain operating procedure, and so shit went south that day, and you're going to get in trouble because you didn't train your guys up to do something the right way. So there's a lot of vicarious liability. There's things that you can get burned for, and you weren't even there.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
You're right though. You're right though, because that's right. Like, for example, in criminal law, if somebody commits a crime and you see that they've committed that crime, now murder is obviously different, but if you see somebody murder somebody else and you fail to report it, you're an accessory to the crime. And that's, I believe, falls along the same lines as what you're talking about. You're an accessory after the fact, even because if you knew something and you failed to report it, you're an accessory to it because you knew about it and failed to report it. So yeah, you're absolutely right, man. And that's a crazy way to think, because how many of us have known about something and then we don't report it because it's like, look, I'm not gonna. I would say this thing, and I'm guilty, man. I am guilty of this, where I knew of something, but I didn't 100% know that it was actually true. And then when people would tell me things, I would constantly tell them, don't tell me. I don't want to know, because here's the problem with me knowing. If it's something bad, I have to report it. And if it's something criminal, I'm going to tell you that if I'm asked, I'm going to tell them. I'm not going to lose my job because of you, but I'm not going to try to get you fired either. But I mean, I understand our scales are different because you're in a setting where everything can be used against you to compromise in the position. So I understand that part. I'm just saying, man, I'm guilty of that too, where people would want to start telling me something and I'm like, do not tell me. And they're like, well, why? Because I have to report it. I heard about a guy one time. See, I'm retired. They're retired. They're no longer working for the school district anymore. But there was a guy who brought a gun to work. And you got to realize, bro, we work for the school district. You can't have a gun. You can't have a gun on campus. Now, I will admit, there were times that I would go shooting after work, but I never parked my vehicle on campus. I parked across the street off of campus because I knew what that law was, and being who I was, I wasn't trying to give the district a reason to fucking fire me. So I made sure that I parked off campus anytime that I had, if I was going to go shooting after work or whatever that was, or I was going to take my gun to the gunsmith. But this guy brought it on campus, man. And, he was all mad about that. Oh, man, these cops came and they did this. And I said, bro, the fact that you told somebody you had a cohete and that it was in your car, you and that guy got beef. Yeah, he's going to tell. And you can't be mad about it. Well, por pendejo, why did you bring that to work, baboso, knowing you and that guy got beef? So why would you tell the guy you got beef with, yo, I have my cohete in my car? Really? Baboso, what?
That's
right? So people do shit like that all the time. Crazy shit, man. And I don't understand it, bro. I mean, but you've the amount of stuff that you must have seen is fucking insane, man. Insane.
Oh yeah, I got my stories, but I'll give you a good example of vicarious liability. We had somebody put a derogatory word on one of the dry erase boards in my work location, and all the people that worked in that area got written up because nobody took it down, and it was in an open area where people could see it. But I was so busy controlling movement, monitoring the inmate population, that I didn't even look at the board. So it was weird. It was crazy to get get called in and have the supervisor talk to you and, did you know that this was on the board right there? And I was like, what the hell? So they burned all of us.
Oh wow.
And it was one of those things where I realized, oh shit, I better really just like look through every nook and cranny of my surroundings because they
hit you with the, if you didn't know, you should have known.
Right.
Yeah, right. Because I mean, I've used that one 100 fucking times on people.
How much do you get paid?
How much I get paid now?
Yeah. How much do you get paid? Don't you get paid to be objective, professionally trained?
Yeah, I guess. That is a trip, man. But these are the awareness things that we have around us, and I think that we're losing that in society a little bit of people being aware. And I think that we can agree that in the Anthony case, just in my perspective, he didn't receive the best legal advice that he probably should have. And for the amount of money that they raised for his legal defense fund, that money should have gone to a real good attorney that understood criminal law and murder cases, tried cases this way. For the simple reason is that, when there was a lot of opportunities, like, look, Metcalf's father coming over wanting to pray with the family. Let me tell you something. If we would have all seen that, I think that would garner some favoritism to the jury, and he wouldn't have gotten 35 years. As you said earlier, he probably could have pleaded out as an offer that they would have given him in the beginning to plead to a lesser sentence. But, when you go with the defense case and looking at all the facts, that's a tough case. And even the attorney himself said that's an uphill battle that's going to be hard. But let me get one last comment from you about this case, from what the stuff that you've seen. You said you did a podcast on that. What did you find about this?
Well, I just felt like, we need to, before we get out there and we start, raging and start making all these posts, it's important to understand how the law works and how jurors are selected, how witnesses are interviewed. It's good to be forensic about it, right? How the medical paperwork is evaluated, how the medical examiner presents the evidence to the jurors. There's so many things that go into this, right? And it's important to understand that in today's day and age, I know you, John, you paint kind of a more doom and gloom type of when it comes to how people perceive politics and sensitive issues like this one. I feel like we're at a turning point, though, and there's a shift going on, and people are starting to say, wait a minute, we're not going to just go out there and riot. We need to look at this, and we need to look at this from through a human lens, and not just a moral framework that we sort of made up, right? Or take a page from the days when they made the Ford Model T and then use that type of wisdom to sway a verdict. It's important that we live in the present and we look at the fact that it's not, nobody won in this situation. You know, it's hard. You know, I already know what Carmelo Anthony is going to go through. I've seen a lot of the experiences in through my own eyes. You know, he's not. I don't know what milestones he's reached in his life. He's not going to experience those anymore. He's not going to be able to go on dates. He's not going to be able to, you know, to experience the milestones that a young man would experience. And I'm not saying that you know, and look at the Metcalfs, you know, his brother's not going to be there for, he's not going to be there anymore. And every time he looks in the mirror, he sees his brother's face, you know. Twins intrinsically have this thing where they think alike, they say the same things. It's got to be a real, man, it's got to be crazy to think that that part of you has been severed, right? And then and the father, he's grieving. The mother, I heard that there was it just put a lot of pressure on the family. Man, it's just it's an ugly case. It really is, and I feel like it's important that we don't become divided, and that we don't start hating one another behind it, because people are, you know, people are going to look at it through different lenses, and we need to be patient with it, man. I just feel like it's going to take a cooling period, and a lot of things are going to be said, a lot of deflections are going to be thrown out there, a lot of conspiracy theories, and we just need to give it that cooling period. It's important, right? Because
I agree.
we all got to live in this world together, man. We all got to participate in community events. We all gotta have the same expectations that our kids are going to be taken care of through the judicial system, regardless of race. And we need to take a lot of things into consideration when we travel to areas that we don't live in or you know, participate in, pay taxes in. It's just it's a whole, it's a big picture, man, and it's not just a one linear argument. You know, it's sad. I've seen a lot of people break down in prison, man. I've seen a lot of people break down in prison when they realize they could have changed the trajectory of their lives by not making a certain decision.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not afraid to speak about that, because I just see things like, hey, you know, I've seen grown ass men just fall apart and lose their minds in prison. Guys doing 800 years, 1,200 years, multiple 400-year term sentences. You know, it's good to be objective. It saves you in the long run. Yeah, man, that's kind of where it's at for me.
Jesse, as usual, my man, you know, you definitely hit the point, you know. I mean, and I think conversations need to be had, and uncomfortable conversations need to be had, for the simple reason is, for us, in order to grow, I say this thing: if you feel pain, you feel discomfort in the conversation that we have, those are called growing pains. Okay. Mm-hmm. And we all need to grow, because we are human and we're all here. And do I think that this is going to make a divide? Yes. And here's what I mean by that. I alluded to it and touched on it a little bit earlier. We're going to have ratchet people on one side, and we're going to have people that want to use common sense and apply logic to what's happening and take responsibility. And we're going to have on the other side people who don't want to take responsibility and don't want to apply logic. That's the split that's going to happen, because there's going to be more people who are going to say, I don't subscribe to that, for the simple reason is, like I said earlier, in the Chow trial, there were people of color on that jury who found that man innocent, because they weighed the facts of the evidence and made that decision. So that definitely proves that I have a resurgence in humanity, and not everybody believes what these people are saying negatively, man. And man, thank you again, Jesse, as always, my man, always hitting the points, man. I appreciate that. We got some things coming up in the future. I hope that you will be with us on that. When I'm talking to the doctor, I want to say that the date in which I'm talking to the doctor is July like 13th or something like that, some Sunday. I'm going to have a doctor on to talk about our health as men from the ages of 25, 35, 45, 55, and 65, because there are things that we need to look at. We need to take care of ourselves, because as men, we always say this thing, and I hear every man, every father, everybody says this, that I'm willing to die for my children, willing to die for my family, but yet we need to be able to love ourselves enough to make sure that we're here for our families also. So, I understand men love to sacrifice themselves because that's what we do, but we also need to love ourselves enough to take care of ourselves. So that's why I'm bringing the doctor in, so we could talk about some of those things. And Jesse, thank you again, sir. Please let everybody know where they could find you. Tell us.
Hit me up on the Unpack Mindset, folks. I'm on YouTube and I'm on Instagram, Facebook. Normally I post mirrors for my podcast on YouTube, and I'm also on TikTok, and I'm going to be uploading videos on Spotify here soon. The Unpack Mindset. Check me out.
Awesome. Jesse, thank you very much. Please hang out a little bit after so we can have a little bit of a talk. Thank you, Jesse. I appreciate you, sir. Just again, to let you know, please do me a favor, like, share, subscribe, let people know what's going on. Let people know about our conversation. Share with that, because it's conversations like this that help us be better as people, as well as having the uncomfortable conversations that maybe some of us don't want to have, but we need to hear and interact with them, because that's what's just going to make us better people. Because let me tell you something, there's only one planet and we are only one people. Okay, so we are not individuals. We are together here on this planet, and we need to learn to love one another and to have a moral compass about who we are, and be able to forgive people for saying things that maybe that they shouldn't. So I urge you all to make sure that you participate in this, and let us know whether we're doing good. Let us know where we can improve. And let me know about the guests. When I bring on people, I try to get out there and find some people, and I got some stuff coming on. I got a CPA coming on to talk about financial stuff. I got a doctor coming on soon. And of course, I like to bring all my friends like Jesse from the Unpack Mindset, because let me tell you something, he does unpack the mind to make sure that you see things from a different perspective and a different vantage point. All right. Thank you, everybody, very much. I appreciate you all. Please subscribe. Let us know what you think about us. And much love, respect. Peace out.
Everything must change.
Yeah, straight out university, the syllabus begins. Check the complex method that separates the men from the kids. We building with 4 pillars. Study the architecture, the lessons in the verses, not just the lecture. See the mind for the money, the muscle is the proof. That global frame is wisdom from the concrete to the roof. And the game is pure knowledge that defines your